We have to start over again? Okay, well, we'll start over again. So we had a little practice run, everyone, and we did not record this. Um, this is the Brazen Maven Society. My name is Gabriela, and this is my co-host, Sasha. I
Hi,
have
everyone.
been in the senior care industry and I own a home care company. And Sasha, you?
I'm a mortgage broker and I help with your financial solutions to paying for home care and other life needs.
Okay, and we're going to get into that today. So today, and we've had a little practice run, that's why we're laughing. I did not record. Okay, so now we are recording. I was wondering why I didn't hear it because I remember last time we heard it.
We're
Today's
beginners. We're
topic,
beginners. People know they have to give
this
us
is raw. Yeah, and it's
grace.
going to stay that way. It's going to stay that way because it's funnier. Um, okay, so today's topic is the day you realize you're the parent now. And we just had some very interesting steps. So we're just going to kind of go through it
Let's
again.
dive in. Yeah, because
Let's
I think
dive in.
we've been on some
Um,
topics that are highly sensitive and
yeah.
um, emotional. They're tough, but there's ways we can deal with this. There's professionals out there to help, and we're going to kind of focus in on that today.
Yes.
Make
And
it a
I
little bit more
will,
positive and uplifting.
yeah, no, and funny too. I mean, there's
Very
funny stuff
funny.
about it too. Um,
Absolutely.
because if you don't laugh, you're gonna cry. Like, I'm pretty sure. But I did want to open with some statistics and why we're bringing this up. And if any of you joined us in the last two podcasts, it was about the death of my dad. That was actually rather sudden. And then we had Marianne on talking just about hospice. But then I thought I wanted to dive deeper. And so Sasha and I discussed, and we're going to dive deeper into kind of where that whole journey started, which
Mhm.
was seeing my dad in October of last year and really noticing a difference. But I wanted to just throw out some statistics.
Mhm.
I can't say that word. Statistics um, about caregiving in America today. And we had discussed that there were some reasons demographically why there's just so much more pressure, creation of this significant sandwich generation, which the National Alliance for Caregiving says between
Mhm.
23 and 29% of US adults are caring for both kids and aging parents,
Wow.
which
Wow.
is
It's
mind
unbelievable.
blowing.
Yes.
Mind
And
blowing.
at the peak earning period of their lives and of their
Correct.
careers. So I don't know about you, but I have a lot of career responsibilities nowadays as well.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, we're at our
but
age,
one
we're
more
at
thing on our
the
back.
pinnacle of our careers. You know, this is
Exactly.
where we become the mavens, right? Brazen
Exactly.
mavens, here we are. We have spent 30 years in our industries building reputation, acquiring experience and knowledge, being capable of being a leader, leaving a legacy.
Yep.
And we're not done yet. It's not like we can retire. I mean, I can't, not
Well,
yet.
that's just it. And being the sandwich, it's what kind of what we're going to discuss today about, first of all, looking at signs for when our parents age.
Yes.
I think particularly the geography aspect of um, how homes are. We don't
Mhm.
live in extended families as much in the Western
Mhm.
world, much to our detriment, I feel.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
let's talk kind of about that and how it's sometimes easier when you live farther apart to identify these early signs.
Well, I think I come from a long distance family always. My grandparents lived in Canada and Florida and like the Caymans for a while. So they would come, my family, I'm very used to the kind of long distance relationship with grandparents.
Same, same.
But they would come and camp out for like anywhere between 3 and 6 weeks once a year.
Nice.
So which is nice because we were able
Yeah.
to connect, but it's not like the traditional. And I think we had told our audience that I'm first generation, and you are too, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Literally, our families come from other parts of the world.
Yes.
So, and our parents are here in America, and not everybody joined. So I'm very used to that long distance relationship. But what I see is very typical American, at least
Mhm.
growing up in the 70s and 80s. There
Mhm.
was more cohesive family units, and people lived closer. And I have had the opportunity to live not just in giant urban centers, but also in small parts of Texas, like Eagle Pass. I mean, you can't get smaller than that. Um, where people, they are born there, they go to high school there, they get married there, and then there's a whole new generation. They're very still very cohesive, and I think you do see that still in a lot of the country. But when you're talking about like urban areas like San Diego metropolitan area or just any big city area, you're going to have a higher tendency, I think, of the kids going to college off somewhere else like mine did and staying in
Mhm.
Virginia. So here we
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
once again repeating the whole long distance grandparent thing.
Yep,
I
yep.
have four grandchildren. I have one on the way, and then but they're all in Virginia.
Yeah,
So we have to make the pilgrimage out there,
sure.
while our children are still very young and really building.
Mhm.
And then I'm hoping that, one day, they'll be able to come see us. I don't know. So
Mhm.
that doesn't bother me because I'm used to it. And
Right, right.
I have ways of communicating with my grandchildren and keeping in the picture, maybe not as closely as I'd like to be, but anyway, that's a whole different thing. Um,
But for
but
you, kind of your
yeah.
experience with your parents, how did that distance play a role?
Well,
Um,
my parents are, and I'm not alone in this. They did not, I've offered a million times. We have a huge house. All our children are moved out. You can come live with us anytime. No, no, they didn't want to be a burden. They wanted their independence. They didn't
mm,
want me in their business. They're very
mhm,
private,
mhm,
especially
mhm,
my dad and my stepmom, very private people.
mhm,
And living, I mean, even when they would come visit us here
mhm.
in Southern California, they would stay in a hotel, and I'm like, I have a guest bedroom. But they wanted their
Wow.
space, they wanted their privacy. So for me,
Okay.
I think an additional barrier. I think that a lot of people
Mm,
don't have with their parents.
okay.
Um, so so I do think though that for the most part, yes, this is kind of the way we are. We're in a very uh, what's the word? Like moving society. Like
Hmm.
kids, they go to school, they get a job wherever their job is.
A
And people
very
they're
mobile
very mobile.
society.
They don't
Hmm.
think twice about that economic opportunity, and they shouldn't. I mean, because they're in their building years.
Or they're working remotely, so they get to
Yeah.
choose wherever in the world they want to live. That's a
Which
whole
is
other dynamic.
great. Yes, and that is great. And we'll touch on that with my sister. Because she was doing a lot of has been doing a lot of the caregiving and oversight.
Mhm,
But yeah, so I think we just live in a society now where it's not a given anymore that you're
mhm,
gonna have
mhm,
multi generations in the
mhm,
same area.
mhm, mhm,
People are going to move on. Also, my parents' generation, they they want to do their own thing.
mhm,
So
mhm,
the topic is parenting your parent, and then
mhm.
there is a time where that it becomes necessary because they become a danger to themselves.
So let's dive into that more.
Yeah.
What did you think was some of the first signs for you when you went
Well, for
out to visit?
me,
Hmm.
yeah. So for me, this was the first
And then
one.
what
My
you see
mother.
kind of with your clients too, you know?
Yeah, and I see it all the time with my clients, but it is
Yeah,
different, obviously, when it's your father.
sure.
But yes, I saw him in October, and I just noticed, just physically, he was just shrinking. He was hunched over. The house
Mm,
was a disaster. It wasn't being taken care of.
mhm.
He was barely
Compared to his
taking care of
normal
himself.
standard, right?
Hmm?
Compared to his normal standard, it
Oh
wasn't taken care
yes. Yeah. Oh no, they had
of.
my stepmom is German. They had
Mhm.
they had standards. Everything was clean,
Okay.
and put away and taken care of.
Mhm,
And I mean, I noticed things like even in the cupboards, it sounds
mhm,
terrible, I know. but he's not here to hear it. But I opened the cupboards and they live in Galveston, Texas. So
Okay.
roaches are a thing and you have to be very diligent. It's an island, so they don't go away. Um,
Oh
and I
dear.
opened the cupboard, first of all,
Okay.
where all the drinking glasses were, and I just remember seeing roaches scurry during the day.
Okay.
And then I pulled the glasses out and I looked at it, and it looked like I don't even think it had been rinsed. It just had been put. And so I pulled every single glass out of there. I hand washed all of them and put them back, wiped it down. But there's things that you have to maintain a home in Galveston, Texas, a specific way because of the humidity and the heat. One of the things that they did on a regular basis was you take the electrical outlet plates off,
Mm-hmm.
all of them, and you spray Raid inside because the roaches will come
Oh
in
wow.
through those. So there's some things. So obviously that hadn't been done. And
Amazing.
anybody in Galveston, you could be the cleanest person in the world. You're gonna
Right.
have roaches. You are going to have roaches.
Oh, I couldn't even
Um,
bear it.
so they were very good at that. And,
Okay.
so only once in a while we'd see a water bug or a roach, but for the most part, growing up,
Mhm.
never really saw roaches in the house. But it's not uncommon. It doesn't mean you're a dirty person in Galveston.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is tough. So that was like one of the things I saw.
Mhm.
The carpets needed to be cleaned. And,
Mhm.
my father was caring for my stepmom for like 3 years at that point. I mean, he had caregivers, but he wouldn't let the caregivers do anything. He wanted to do everything for her. So
So
obviously
what kind
all
of,
that went downhill.
so let's talk about that. Like what kind of care is available? Maybe if they wouldn't, if he didn't take help with her care,
Mhm.
um, do you think in retrospect, or do you recommend for other people, get a housekeeper then, have a housekeeper going in once a week,
Oh, he had
or
one.
have,
She
oh,
just
okay.
didn't do anything. So
Oh,
yeah,
geez.
so I mean, and my situation is different, of course,
Right,
than
right,
everybody's.
right.
But my
Mm-hmm,
whole point is that I saw it
mm-hmm,
immediately.
mm-hmm,
I did talk to my sister about it, and
mm-hmm.
she did agree. She actually would visit more often because she lives in San Antonio, so she's closer.
Okay.
And so
Mm-hmm,
we had this long distance relationship, of course, and
mm-hmm.
people are very good at, your parents are going to be very good if you're on the phone really
Hiding it.
about kind of covering, yeah, and
Sure.
everything's fine, and all that. If you're going to have a resistant parent. Now, I don't know what it's like to have a parent that will share everything with me. I'm sure that they're out there and
Mm-hmm,
they tell their children, everything that's going on, doctor visits, all that kind of stuff.
mm-hmm,
Mine never did. In fact, we never found out about any health
mm-hmm.
crisis until after the fact.
And now, so
Yeah.
people that you work for and work with, what do they, do you notice that there's a tendency for the younger the parents are, the more they'll allow their children to share some of these burdens with them of the appointments or
But
meetings for in-home care to,
Mhm.
kind of where does that discussion go?
Like I
If
said,
your parent
all
is
my clients and all my clients are like little snowflakes. They are all so different, which
okay.
is, why I just try to get to know them, what the dynamic is. I
Hmm.
do see the ones I see, like my favorites are the devoted daughter and the accepting father. I
Okay.
love to see that. And I've
Okay.
come across quite a few of those once the spouse is gone. And this is
Hmm.
more the type of man that was very family oriented. And his wife was also very family oriented and very cohesive, wonderful, loving families. And the daughters will, and it's all, a lot of times it's going to be the daughters,
Mm,
and
okay.
usually the oldest daughter. That's
Hmm.
statistically how it is.
Yeah.
Stepping in and helping dad, but still maintaining his dignity. Very important to them, and I honor and respect that. And
Hmm.
then you
Hmm.
have the more resistant type. There's nothing wrong, nothing to see here. let's move on, get out of my business. Maybe not as extreme as my family, but I do see it. And so
Yeah, yeah.
you'll get that resistance, and then you'll get a lot of I've seen a lot of resistance with the older lady
Hmm.
and the daughter. But then you're dealing with the dynamic.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you're dealing with the dynamic,
The
and whatever
mother-daughter.
that relationship is. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's
Okay.
the hardest part of this is that parenting your parent is basically turning the roles around. And we all know about that and we all
Yeah,
hear about it, but it's
yeah.
very distinct to your individual relationship
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's whatever your history is with your
Hmm.
parents.
Hmm.
There's still, I mean, there's some bad histories I've seen, but still the children will step up, of course, because it's their parents.
Hmm.
But you have
Hmm.
so many dynamics, and then you have sibling issues. You have it really, you know how they say weddings and funerals kind of bring out the worst and the best. This
Yes,
conversation also does that.
yes,
It really
yes.
just lays open what is already there may have been
Hmm.
dormant because people aren't
Hmm.
interacting, but a crisis or the need to have this conversation is really what brings the whole family, whether it's functional or dysfunctional, and most families are dysfunctional. Just, I mean,
And I think that's the
yeah,
big thing that I want to talk about too, is the
yeah,
fact that these conversations are not easy. They're not going to
right.
be a perfect 11 to, I mean, a 10 to 11 minute elevator pitch
Nope.
in front of a marketing board or a CEO board, or, you're talking to people who, up until literally that point in time, have felt the parent of the situation.
Yes.
And now you just
And
want to kind of flip
yeah.
that tablecloth up from underneath them, or flip
And
that
they
rug out
don't
from
want to
underneath them.
lose their agency, and I don't
Mhm.
blame them, but there is a
Yeah,
point where they do become dangerous to themselves.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of so what do you think in people, where should they start in terms of services? We talked about um, they come home from care, hospital, a
That's the
social
best
worker.
opportunity.
Okay, let's talk about
I
that a
think
little
it's the
bit.
best opportunity because you
Hmm.
can have a third party involved.
Okay.
You have another set of eyes, not related to the family dynamic,
Hmm.
professional.
Hmm.
And even I will tell you, being in senior care for almost 40 years, my
Hmm.
father
Hmm.
did not ask me for any advice or tell me anything
Wow.
until the crisis. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he would, and he did listen to the hospice people. And so I think that's an
Well, that's
opportunity
good.
if you it's an opportunity if you know you're going to have resistance from your parents
Okay, so what
that
if they don't go to the hospital? What if
mm,
they, just need help
mhm,
and
mhm.
maybe could do with an in-home doctor visit? Um, is that possible for a child to set up for their parent?
Not generally. So see, this is kind of the hard part of the conversation. If you have resistant parents,
Hmm.
you're gonna have to get to a crisis,
Okay. Okay.
unfortunately.
Yep.
You can let them know, though. I know
Hmm.
you don't want to discuss this right now. I know we've tried to discuss this. As my father
Hmm.
said, you'll have all the information when you need it. No, I didn't. So if you do have that, there's probably not much you can do until the
Hmm.
crisis. And then when the
Okay.
crisis happens,
Hmm.
that's when you can try to take opportunity with the resources available, whether it's the case manager in the hospital, if they come home with home health.
Hmm.
Home
Hmm.
health has social workers,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
social worker can be that third party, the
Hmm.
professional that they may listen to. Because if you have that resistance going on, that's not going to change at all
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
they are in crisis and then they basically surrender for the moment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then that resistance may come back when they're feeling better and all of that. So
Hmm.
for those families, the only thing I can suggest is maybe they would be willing to talk to a case manager. And there are
Mhm,
professional geriatric case managers out there.
mhm, mhm,
They
mhm.
do get paid, so they have to be
Okay.
paid. And
And do
honestly,
we have what's the
yeah,
idea of kind of pay for that? What would someone
they
be looking
run
at? What's the
anywhere
range?
from like, 125 to 300 an hour. I mean, it's
Okay.
just, but they're if you if you consult with people in the senior care industry in your area, or you can even look them up online. A lot of them, they run
Hmm.
their own businesses, they have
Hmm.
reviews, all of that. Um, it's worth it
Hmm.
because it at least can get the conversation started, and it's not by you. They're not going to resist as much as they're going to resist you because you're the
And the
family
reality is,
member. Yeah.
well, and that $300 could end up saving you thousands if
Yes.
they get
Yeah.
rushed into a hospital in a crisis
Yeah.
situation,
And
right?
so,
And I
I
mean,
mean, if you're
it's
having
cheap when it comes
resistance,
to those situations.
well, yeah. And I think a lot of times, I mean, they're professionally trained. They know how to
Hmm.
come in, do an assessment of this, the current situation, cognitive
Hmm.
assessments and all that. They do it just through conversation. They don't give you a test.
Hmm.
But they just have a conversation about kind of, your daughter's concerned or your son is concerned. And
Hmm.
just wanted to come have a conversation with you. Like, where do you
Hmm.
think you
Hmm.
are? So that self-assessment as well. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
because
Hmm.
that's a big chasm to fill sometimes.
Hmm. Hmm.
People can be in denial for a long period of time
Oh,
about their
absolutely.
physicality and their mental
Yes.
status.
Yes.
So if,
And do you see a tendency with
yeah,
one sex being more resistant to admitting declining strength,
it depends on the family
weakness?
dynamic. It really
Really?
does.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And personality types.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I have seen extremely resistant women and
Hmm.
extremely resistant men.
Okay. Good to
Um,
know.
And so I do think that certain things for men, like independence wise, they're more
Hmm.
resistant, like taking away
Hmm.
keys. That's a big one.
Oh, for
Um,
driving.
mhm. Yeah, taking away
Mm.
keys is a big deal for the guys. And
Mhm.
I get it, especially
Yeah.
from their
Yeah.
generation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I mean, it just really depends on the topics, but for the most
Hmm.
part, I've seen kind of half and half. And
Okay.
it really is dependent on that. And then also the family dynamic again, it's huge.
Hmm.
And you can't change 50 years of a family dynamic. If you had a power
Absolutely.
struggle with one of your parents your whole life, you are going to continue to have a power struggle with them, especially when the roles are reversed.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So
so
once we
it's,
get to
yeah.
that point, we need
Mhm.
care. What are our care option breakdowns? Where, what kind of what
Well,
choice do people have if their parents are, okay, I need help, let's do this.
yeah. So, and I do want to explore them in depth next
Mhm.
podcast, and then we're going to talk about the care options that are available for
Okay,
people, and then the corresponding costs. So that's going to be
perfect.
the next podcast. So, but briefly, the options are home
Hmm.
care,
Okay.
which is someone
Uh,
coming in
yeah,
and
let's break down. What
assisting.
does that mean? Like, what do they do when they get to your house?
Well, I mean, I always describe good caregivers are people that are just an extension of the person they're caring for. So whatever
Okay,
they're
that's
not
great.
capable
Hmm.
of doing any longer, either not capable or not safely capable,
Okay, okay.
that caregiver is there within the house to
And
take care of it.
actually,
Yeah.
saying, before we go into that in-home care, do you agree that they should, if they're going to age in place, that they should
Yeah.
have a contractor or um, an age in place specialist that can come and help put in like handrails for shower enclosures,
Hmm.
make sure that handrails are steady if they have stairs, or even put in an elevator chair to make those little changes so
Hmm.
that, even though they can't do them anymore, they're
Hmm.
relying on someone to help, but you're kind of still giving them that independence. Does that make sense
Yeah.
to
Sorry,
do?
I'm going to turn my, I left my little chirpy thing on. So yes, and I'm gonna dive deeper into that
Mhm.
in the next one. The thing is
Okay.
with that, I mean, a case manager can help it, but I just want to urge people, if at all possible, older
Mhm.
people too, like they can help themselves and
Yeah.
alleviate a lot of the concern of their nosy children if they take advantage of all the resources that are provided during the crisis. So when somebody
Um,
gets sent home on
okay.
home health, Medicare will usually pay for a skilled nursing visit at least to open and
Okay.
evaluate.
Okay.
If there's no nursing needed, they're going to send out a physical therapist who is in
Great.
charge of the occupational therapist. So the difference between
Okay.
physical therapy and occupational therapy is that physical therapy is about
Hmm.
increasing strength, balance, endurance.
Okay.
Occupational therapy is used when someone is either recovering or permanently in a different state than prior to what they went into the hospital for. So, biggest
Okay.
example, easiest example is stroke. So, if
Okay.
somebody had a stroke, they
Hmm.
rehabilitate in the skilled nursing facility.
Hmm.
And then when they get to a certain level, they have to go home. But
Yep.
Medicare
Yep.
follows them home with home health.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
a physical therapist will come out and do an assessment and create a care plan for
Hmm.
strength and what have you. And but also occupational therapy is very important at that point for them to remain independent or
So,
independent-ish.
occupational therapy, that's helping them bathe and stay
Mm-mm.
clean. No?
No,
What is that?
the occupational therapy is teaching them how to exist and do things in their own environment in a new state. So if you
Oh,
had a
okay.
stroke, for instance, and your right hand side doesn't work very well any
Hmm.
longer, physical
Hmm.
therapy is still going to come out and try to get that strength back,
Okay.
and all of that. But the occupational therapist is going to work off of the physical therapist and help that person negotiate their environment. So opening
And isn't
cabinets
that
and that kind of thing.
that's so interesting because I think for a person that is maybe a little stubborn, that
Mhm.
distinction in explaining that no, no, they're not here to help you forever. They're
Mhm.
just here to teach you how to do it
Mhm.
given the circumstances that you have right now. That's a
Correct.
very different perspective for on the person receiving that message.
Yeah. And usually, I think usually most people don't have a problem with it. Number one, because it's free.
Mm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
so Medicare does pay for that. So if we're talking
Amazing.
people that are 65 and older. So,
Hmm.
but they don't come out, they don't take care of you like 100%. They
Right.
come out 2 or 3 times a week. The physical
Hmm.
therapist sets up that care plan, that therapy plan, and they come out and do exercises. You have to be
Hmm.
making progress for them to continue coming out. So it's just you need to do your exercises every day, and then the
Hmm.
occupational therapy person uh, takes advantage of your increased strength and all of that, and then
Hmm.
helps you do things in your house to keep you independent. So
Mm.
teaches
Okay.
you how to get
Okay.
in and out of a car
Mm.
safely, how to get on and off the toilet safely, how to open cabinets if you're like wheelchair bound, for instance.
Okay.
So all of your activities of daily living, they teach you how to do it in your
Yeah.
new state.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the idea is eventually they will go away, and it's usually about 4 to 6 weeks is kind of the sweet
Hmm.
spot. They
Hmm.
will go away. So not always though, if you continue to make progress, but for the most part, yeah, they sign off on that. So then,
Okay.
and hopefully you've hit that, what they call a rehab potential, and
Hmm.
that you are able to maintain your and that's the carrot. And a lot of people on if it's not, it depends on their personality. A lot
Hmm.
of them really take that carrot. They're like, I don't want, it's like a big wake up call for them a lot of
Yeah.
times, like
Yeah.
how
Especially if it's the
fragile
first
your life
crisis.
is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's their motivation. And I've seen very motivated clients. I mean, they are on it
And
because they don't want
that's
any help.
well, and that's an interesting time too, because we both know professionals that if if something permanent happens, right, there's a new state of being, you're in a wheelchair,
Mm-hmm.
you're wheelchair bound from
Mm-hmm.
this point forward. We have amazing professionals that specialize in we're going to reorganize your house. We're going to move things around in your cupboards,
Mhm.
because these things are amazingly useful. But you certainly, if you're a family member helping your parent, or
Mhm.
if you're the patient, you don't have the patience, the bandwidth, potentially the strength to do this yourself. So, this
Mhm.
is again why we're here,
Yeah.
because we also represent an amazing group of professionals that will help give you an in home assessment, like
Mhm.
a care manager. We know an amazing group of builders that will come in and help put in hand railings so
Modify.
you can get
Mhm.
up from the toilet
Mhm.
confidently, so that you can hold and get in and out of a
And
shower or a bathtub, or
and
change a bathtub completely, you know?
yeah, and I did want to say part of that PTOT is an equipment thing. So that's
What
what
is that PTOT?
so part of the physical therapy, occupational therapy component in Medicare
Okay.
is that there are
Okay.
they will recommend, and in fact, you should even get a safety evaluation if you get nothing else from physical
Awesome. See,
therapy. Yeah.
that's great. And
So,
to know the right people
mhm,
though, I beg people look for reviews, get
mhm.
someone that is a personal recommendation from someone else that's had work done. That
Yeah.
is the best
And they
way.
should know. And they also have social workers. So that's why
Mhm,
I'm saying if you have a stubborn or resistant parent, and you
mhm.
really know they need help, if the crisis is what's gonna start this whole conversation because they're not going to talk to you about anything before. And that's
But
how it is.
We met Marianne last week. She's incredible. That's the kind of
Yeah.
person that they're going to meet, who
Yeah.
has an encyclopedia of knowledge
Hmm.
in her brain
Yeah.
of what services there are, who can provide them, and again, part of our
Mhm.
network of really senior care professionals
Yes.
who
And
care.
take advantage of it. So if
Yeah.
you have a parent that is not going to let you help, take advantage of the crisis, take a deep breath. And it's a lot, right? But you kind of probably knew it was coming. It's just,
Mm,
so
interesting. Yeah.
instead of reacting to it, really be proactive and take advantage of it because those are all services that are paid for through their Medicare benefit. And
Hmm.
you can have these third parties, the social worker, the physical therapist, you can have them come in and at least try, and their goal is going to be to get them set up for success. They don't want them back in
Hmm.
the hospital. They don't,
Hmm.
so that's
Hmm.
their job is to get them
Hmm.
safely transitioned to home. So if you have that
Yep. Yep.
resistant parent, my sad note to everyone is that unfortunately, most of the time you have to wait for that crisis. If you
Okay.
have the more a receptive parent, you're still
Mhm.
going to hit some resistance, but you might be able to ahead of the curve get say an independent case manager that's their job is to go in and talk to them and say your children have concerns. We want to they want to respect your privacy and your independence. But they've asked me to come in. They've paid for me to come in. You're going to probably have to pay
Mhm.
for it. They paid for me to come in just to get to
Mhm.
know you guys and know where you are and possibly be a resource for you so that maybe they can talk to that person if they don't want to
Yep.
talk to their children.
Amazing.
Um,
Now, what if they just can't stay at home anymore? They are either physically or mentally unable to stay at home and they go to assisted living. What are the options at that point?
so,
And how
so
did we
yeah,
get them
so
in?
we're
How
gonna,
did they get there?
yeah, so that will be, that we will discuss in depth that's the next one.
Okay.
Um, but what I think what people need to understand is, and amazingly enough, I'm having this conversation with my stepmother right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm not having it. My poor sister is.
Okay.
And so that's kind of because she's there. So
Hmm.
I think like when we're talking about parenting the parent, there's going to be the two situations. One's going to be crisis, and one of them is going to be we're going to get ahead of this a little bit, and you might have
Hmm.
parents that are more receptive. But if you
Hmm.
don't, I think the hardest part is, at least from my experience, and what I also see with with my clients' kids,
Hmm.
is that you want to balance their dignity. You know,
Hmm.
they've had 70 plus years on this planet, as my father told me.
Hmm.
And they have earned their place as an elder in our society. And I think that
Yeah.
the reason that there's this resistance and pushback is maybe a little denial, maybe a little shame. There's a lot going on in the family dynamic, and also the parent doesn't want to look weak
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
needy. And so
Hmm.
just if
Hmm.
people can put themselves in their shoes, like, I
Yeah.
think I mentioned during my dad's death thing that I think the hardest part for me as the oldest child and
Hmm.
favorite daughter. No, I'm just kidding. No, we just always were very in sync. But it was very hard for me to see him that way,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was very hard for him to have me see him that
Have you
way.
see that? Okay.
Yeah. So just when they become really human, um, and they're no longer your parent really anymore. So I think a lot of
Hmm.
people have to step back and digest that for a moment
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
honor that feeling.
Hmm.
That's a real feeling, and it's very confusing because it just turns, like I said, the whole relationship upside down, and they are still your parent,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the reason we talk about all this other stuff is if you get that resistance, you still, as their child, as their family member, no matter what the dynamic is, you see them like this and you're like, they need help. So
Yeah.
hopefully the first part of this like helped people kind of know that there are resources out there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when the crisis happens, that if they're getting resistance from their parents, that's when they can jump in. Now, because the parent is in the crisis. So
Got it.
at
Hmm.
that moment, they may allow you to be there. They may allow you to have discussions. They may
Hmm.
allow you to provide resources at that moment.
Hmm.
But if they're
Hmm.
very resistant, they're going to get a little bit better and they're going to push you back out. So that's the time that you kind of jump on it and say,
Yep.
because you can talk to the social worker. They may not be able to tell you anything, but you can talk to them
But
at
you
the
can tell
hospital
them
and you
and
can say, I have known this is coming for a long time. My dad needs resources or my mom needs resources.
mhm.
They won't listen to me. They're very resistant. And those people, they're used to dealing with that. They understand that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then
And I
they
think
will
that's
come
when
in
you
and
need
be
to
an
be
intermediary.
and I think that's when you need to be honest with those
Hmm.
professionals in what are you willing to bring to the table, or how much time do you have to care for them? Because
Hmm.
the more information I assume the social worker has to make a holistic decision with your parent, the better, right?
Yeah, and it's really, really important, I think, also to interject yourself and just insist as much as possible that you are
Mm.
part of that conversation,
Okay.
because a lot of times the very stubborn parent
Hmm.
or very private parent does not want you involved,
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
at that level sometimes, if they're feeling
Okay.
better. And so they don't want
Mhm.
you involved. And so just pushing, letting the social worker know you've seen these problems and they don't
Yeah.
want you involved. So a lot of times the self-reporting is minimal. So they'll play
Hmm.
down like difficulties that they've had. And you
Now,
can pull that social worker aside and say, hey, you know what? That's not what I've seen. And I've heard my dad fell 3 times in the last 2 months. That's a big red flag. I know that he's fallen, or I've come and visited him and I've seen bruises. I've seen,
hmm.
you tell them what you've seen. They want to know
Hmm.
that because
Hmm.
the stubborn person is not going to say what's going on.
Right.
They're not dumb.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
know if they say stuff like that, then they're making themselves even more vulnerable than they are at that
Right.
moment. Yeah.
Right. Now, who makes the call then for whether they can stay at home or whether they have to go into an assisted living? Because
So,
if they stay at
okay.
home, kind of what kind of options are we looking at?
Yeah, so I mean, this is what I would call like the crux of the decision-making process that can be
Hmm.
facilitated by that social worker because they have to do what's called a safe discharge. So if that's
Okay.
a social worker in the facility in a hospital, for instance, has to do a
Hmm.
safe discharge, which is why they order the home health and the home
Hmm.
health follows. And then when home health follows, they observe what's going on in the home
Okay.
because they're there intermittently. So home health is
Okay.
intermittent care.
Okay.
And that's why a lot of times our company gets called because we're the
Hmm.
space in between. So home
Okay.
health, and there's a lot of confusion, especially with hospice too. People
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
that Medicare, the government, is going to pay for somebody to be there around the clock. No, that is over.
Okay.
So when they're safe enough to go
Hmm.
home, they have to get
Okay.
out of the skilled nursing facility because that is 24
Okay.
hour. They go
Okay.
home.
Hmm.
If they have functional limitations in the skilled nursing facility, the
Hmm.
social worker and or discharge planner, they're usually the same, one and the same.
Hmm.
They have to create a safe discharge, and that does include being realistic about their support at home, and their capability and functionality for all of their
Okay.
activities of daily living. So then sometimes
Okay.
yes, that's when home care, non-medical home care, and I want to make that
Hmm.
distinction because I don't think I unfortunately not in all parts of the country, including California, which surprises me because everything is so
Hmm.
crazy regulated.
Hmm.
But in Texas anyway, home care is
Hmm.
what we do. That is custodial care, non-medical assistance with activities of daily living. Home
Okay.
health is what Medicare pays for, and that is skilled intermittent. So that
Okay.
means the skilled nurse, if you get a nurse, they're going to come out
Hmm.
probably once a week or once every 2 weeks. And then you'll get
Okay.
frequencies. So once
Okay.
every 2 weeks. Your physical therapist, depending on your situation, may be approved to come out 2 times a week for strength
Okay.
and balance training. Your
Hmm.
occupational therapist may be able to come out once a week. So, but
Hmm.
they're coming
Hmm.
out for an appointment in your home. That's what they're
Okay.
doing, and then they leave.
Okay.
Okay.
And so the
So
rest of the time
Medicare
they're
does pay
they're
for that. Yeah.
okay. The rest of the time though, you have to figure it out with them. How are
Yeah.
they cared for?
Yeah. That's how they're cared for. So so it's going to be in a residential setting. So home health can go anywhere. It can go to an assisted living. It can go to a home care. It can go to a boarding care,
Hmm.
which is like the smaller assisted living. So there's like six up to 6 beds usually. So in a
Hmm.
residential setting, that will happen. But what happens to the space in between?
Mm.
And so that's the thing that the social workers will look at in the skilled nursing facility. What's going to happen in the 23 hours that a skilled person is not there?
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the nurse isn't going to do a diaper change. The nurse is not going
Okay.
to assist to a toilet. The nurse is not, they don't do that. They come out, they might do a blood draw, they're going to check on vitals, they're going to make sure medications are set up properly, all of that.
Hmm.
That's what the nurse will do. She's not going to do the caregiving component.
So who does that if they're at home?
So it's going to be, it'll fall to family members
Okay.
or paid help.
Okay.
Or you may have to make the decisions. And that's why I wanted to segue to next week's episode into what the different things are, how much on average they cost, and then how you pay for them. Because these
Awesome.
are things that really have to be thought out. And the problem is that my experience has been that many people in the older generation don't want to have that
Hmm.
conversation. They just don't.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And they just
I
don't think
agree.
they're going to need it. They say, I'm going to drop dead. Well, okay, no, not
Not
always.
necessarily.
Yeah, not
Hmm.
necessarily. So those
Hmm.
are things that even if we have younger listeners and viewers who have parents that maybe are in their 70s, I think
Hmm.
it's far enough away for them mentally that they might be willing to have the conversations
Hmm.
about what their wishes are and the realities of what the costs are and where are they now in life and try to make those decisions. I think when people what I see, the biggest resistance I see is when people get older and they really are starting to fail and they know they're starting to fail and they really are resisting it, then it's almost impossible to have the conversation because they're terrified of losing their agency.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it becomes, they become so defensive at that point. I think having the conversation, and I did have the conversation with my mom and my stepdad. I did not have it
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
my dad and my stepmom,
Mhm.
because of their
Mhm.
privacy issues.
Mhm.
And so I did have conversations. I did know kind of, and you know, my mom did go very quickly
Mhm.
and suddenly. So
Mhm.
she got
Mhm.
what she wanted. But my stepdad's still with us,
But
but
that
we've
doesn't
had that
mean,
conversation already. So he
well,
knows I know what they want.
and even though your mom went quickly, it doesn't mean that there still weren't issues after that in terms of
Yeah.
who was left behind, the other, her spouse,
Mhm.
what if that person is caring for a spouse that all of a sudden the caregiver
Yeah.
passes?
I'm
Because that
lucky
happens
those two
quite a
were
bit.
relatively healthy. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and so, yeah, that's why I'm saying, like in the beginning when we were talking about this, how everyone is just so different. Every family is
Hmm.
so different. Um, I would encourage people, because what we haven't addressed, and we can address it briefly, is also where the adult child feel, the feeling of the adult child, especially if it's a crisis and this has come by surprise, or you go at Easter, like I told you before, like we get a huge rush of new clients in January.
Hmm.
Because they've been at home over the holidays. They've all gotten together and they've seen kind of what's going on. And
Hmm. Hmm.
just also acknowledging as the adult child how that feels, because you're going to also have consequences um, of the role reversal. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
uncomfortable,
Hmm.
and you can feel anticipatory grief. You can feel fear. You can be worried about finances. And then we were saying that we are like this huge sandwich generation where you're in the pinnacle of your career,
Hmm.
and you're in the pinnacle, and all of a sudden you as a child have this feeling of obligation because you're family, that now these things take time. Caregiving for your parent and managing their lives, if it came to that, if it was like worst case scenario and you had to jump in and all of a sudden take over finances and living
Hmm.
arrangements and all of that,
Hmm.
just to remind the adult children that it's very normal to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You may even feel, of course, sadness. You can
Hmm.
feel
Hmm.
resentment.
Hmm.
And that is all normal. It's
Yeah.
natural, just like, why am I having to go through this? But for everybody to realize, what was the just statistic? Why can't I say that? The statistic that I said in the beginning, 23 to 29% of our country, adult children, are taking care of their own children and their parents. So you're not
Wow.
alone. And so there are support groups, there's tons of stuff online, there's forums, depending on what you're doing for your parent, whether you're directly caring for them or managing something. They have like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, just regular dementia. They have all kinds of support groups.
Hmm.
And I would never consider myself a support group kind of person, but they do have them like even online where you can just kind of linger and like look and see. So that's a
Hmm.
lot of support for people, because it doesn't go away, and it brings up a lot of dynamics and past history. And my true feeling is that it's the beginning of the grieving process for of the eventuality of losing your parents.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think that that's why I think people really should try to embrace it
Hmm.
more than resist it, because whatever the issues are, you're working it out in real time.
Hmm.
And and just allowing yourself to feel those, feel everything that you're feeling, whatever it is. And it could be anger, it could be, past hurts, it could be a lot of stuff. But the fact is that if you're the one that's doing it, you just jump in, be organized. There's all kinds of stuff online.
Mhm.
ChatGPT
Mhm.
can help you organize. And then the earlier that you can have the conversation, I think the better. I think I'm going to be fine with my stepdad because I talked to them about this when they were in their 70s. So bringing it up again is not going to be as hard because we've
A
been
shock.
having this conversation for about 15 years and
Yeah.
we've got powers of attorney set up. That's really important. Getting the
Mhm.
power financial and medical. Um, and then I do want to just briefly address, I do
Let
feel
me just
guilt.
jump in there one quick because I want to go
Hmm.
back to something that you talked about that I think that
Hmm.
is really important. We mentioned, um, the support groups and the forums
Hmm.
for people. If
Hmm.
you are the sandwich generation and you're going through this, very often you may not have a network at work that you want to talk to because
Hmm.
you have a lot of subordinates, for example.
Yeah.
Or you may not want to talk about this with your peers at work because you're in a high functioning, high productivity executive environment where you're
Hmm.
not supposed to be talking about your feelings and what's going on with parents and all these
Right.
struggles that you're having. And if it's financial or so on. So I think the focus on these forums, the support groups where you have confidentiality, you have support, and other people going through what you're going through.
I agree. And that's a good point. And since we're talking about kind of corporate America too, and people being at their pinnacle and maybe being in leadership positions, and you can't share this with people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Many, many, many companies have EAP, which is employee assistance programs.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so you can take advantage of those. And then if you have health insurance, I would recommend looking up a counselor
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
talking to them. So if you can't, yeah, talk about this with anybody else, but in those forums and that kind of thing, even if it's just online,
Hmm.
or if, like a Facebook page about caregiving that you can linger on, I still encourage people to do it. Like I said, I'm not much of a support group person myself. I'm
Hmm.
private. I got that from my parents. I mean, I will talk to my friends. I talk to you about all kinds of
Well,
stuff,
but also
but
you live in this industry. So
yes.
even if you're not necessarily talking about it,
Hmm.
you know when it's coming to a point when you have to talk about it
Yeah.
with somebody. I think you understand more the nuances compared to, the average person out there.
Yeah, but it doesn't save you from the real human feelings. Then
Yeah, yeah.
the only reason that I'm saying that to everyone is I believe now looking back that these
Hmm.
are opportunities it really is the beginning of the end when your
Hmm.
parents need parenting. It is the
Hmm.
beginning.
Hmm.
So even
Okay.
before hospice, just
Hmm.
wrapping, I think it just wrapping your head around this is the beginning of the end, to
Hmm.
be very present in how you're dealing with things, how you're feeling about things, and possibly using this as an opportunity to not try to get all of your business done with your parents, like at
I
the
was going to say,
end.
let's not do this as a reconciliation time of we're
Yeah.
going to put everything on balance. No, first we're going to get the care your parents
Hmm.
need, and we're all going to be grown-ups about the situation. I think that's a
Yeah.
big reality
Yeah.
check that a lot of
And as much
um,
as you can.
we need to
But
have.
I will tell you, you said something about, well, who makes the decision? Well, ultimately, your parent makes this decision,
Hmm.
and you don't have any control over it unless you
Yeah,
have power of attorney.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you can't, it's very hard to do, and sometimes it's almost impossible until it is a
Hmm.
crisis,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Hmm.
And then you also have to deal with, your family dynamics. I wanted to
Hmm.
say, in case my sister
Yeah.
watches this, that she has been the gem. I am the oldest and I'm in the business, but my dad made her power of attorney. for
Mm-hmm.
everything. So
Mm-hmm.
financial,
Mm-hmm.
she's in the insurance industry. She has
Mm-hmm.
no idea. So thankfully I have been able to be there for her and explain things and be a sounding board. And it's been very stressful for her.
Yeah.
But that's who my dad
Yeah.
chose. And so she unfortunately, so she has been, unlike the traditional oldest daughter, she's been the one that's been having to do this. And there's a lot to take care of. It's appointments and
Mm-hmm.
medications and
Mm-hmm.
finances and safety
Mm-hmm.
and managing someone else's household.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been a trooper. I mean, if
That's
I had
amazing.
to have done, thankfully she can work from home. So she
Mm-hmm.
she was able to keep her job. But I told you this, Sasha, privately, like if I had had to go to Galveston, my company
Mm-hmm.
would have folded.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's,
yeah.
we've been we kind of really focused today on, the emotional side of these
Mm-hmm.
decisions, which I think is important, and honoring your parents. But I think you're right,
Mm-hmm.
honoring your siblings that are there on the ground, boots on
Yeah.
the ground, instead of
Yeah.
coming in with lots of opinions of how this could be done better or that,
Yeah.
coming in
Yeah.
with the attitude of, what do you need me to do?
Yeah.
How can
How
I
can
make
I
your
support you?
life
Yeah.
better? How can I support you?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd like to kind of,
Yeah.
as we wrap things up here,
Okay.
just really focus on the idea that it's, first of all, a tough conversation that you're not going to have once and once only.
Mm.
Start dribbling those seeds, right? Way in anticipation.
Yeah.
Um, be respectful, when we're talking to our parents. We don't know what that resistancy is going to be. Um, and as you mentioned, honoring our siblings that are there. Because you did say that to me. I remember very
Mm-hmm.
clearly you saying, my sister has got a lot on her shoulders, and I'm in the business, and it's a lot when it's your parent. So when
Mm.
you're not in the business and you do have all these things on your shoulders, um, asking for help from trusted professionals is really where,
Yeah. And I'll
we want
put
to
some stuff in
stress.
the show notes and some links to resources. There's national
Hmm.
associations of care managers. They're everywhere, geriatric care
Hmm.
managers that can get the conversation started.
Well,
But
and you
like
and
I
I
said,
mean, reach out. Well, you have our contacts down below in the comments.
yeah, of
Reach
course,
out
and
to
we can
us,
guide.
San Diego
We could
area,
definitely
Southern
guide.
California.
Yes, but yeah, just and I think truthfully, just being in the business and then going through the crisis with the crisis style parent, and he wasn't a crisis style parent. That's the crazy part.
Right, right.
Everything was very well planned out except for him. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so
Which is amazing,
just
right?
having that conversation, like if you're listening and you have parents that are in their 70s,
Hmm.
try now. Do it now. Get them used to thinking about it. Who are they going to appoint? If nothing else, doing advanced directives, setting up powers of attorney. Usually people set up financial and medical power of attorney separately.
Hmm.
Why my
Hmm.
dad did, my poor sister has to do both. I don't know. But usually that's done separately and it's done
Hmm.
for a
Hmm.
reason. It's kind of a check
Hmm.
and balance.
And
But at
we're
the
going to
very
have
minimal, just get those done.
and
Yeah.
we're going to have professionals on here too. I've got some great colleagues that you've worked with as well
Yeah.
that will talk about setting up your medical power of attorney versus a financial power of attorney, and what
Yeah.
the real differences are. Because as a reverse mortgage specialist and a
Hmm.
reverse mortgage advisor, the biggest issue that will enable that will inhibit your parents from getting equity from their home
Hmm.
is if you do not have the right power of attorney that's allowed to make financial decisions for
Yeah.
them.
It's
And
very
so all of a
important.
sudden, their all of their finances are locked up in
Hmm.
their home, and you can't get it out till you sell it. But that is a conversation
That's
for
a
another
total
day.
that I'll be very interested in. Yeah. So
So
we'll talk about that and another show.
awesome. So this has been great, Gabby. Thank you very much for, all of your insight on this subject. I think it's again,
yes.
it's a personal one, but there's a lot that we can help out and a lot we can support. our
Yeah,
clients with.
absolutely. And thank you. You always ask the best questions. I got to get better at that. But what I will when it's your foray, which is going to be the financial stuff, because that did throw me for a loop. So, so we'll end for today.
You
But
want to
I
stop
want
recording? Or are
well,
we going to
not
keep
yet.
recording?
We're not done
Okay.
recording yet. But because I want to announce what we're going to talk about in
Oh,
our next
okay.
episode. So
Yes.
the next Brazen Maven Society topic is going to be a little expanding where you wanted to go, which was the options in senior care. So there's a lot of options out there,
Okay.
and of course, finances.
Mhm.
And there's several ways to pay for it. And so that'll give you an
Mhm.
opportunity a little bit to talk about reverse mortgage. And then what I thought we would do after that at some point, not directly after, but have a segment on reverse mortgages, and then bring in a long-term care insurance specialist and annuities. And there's all kinds of things that you can do if you plan
Mhm.
early enough
Yep.
with your
Yep.
parents. So in parenting your parents, maybe
Mhm.
having, hopefully that will help everybody understand what the options are, how to pay for it, and hopefully having those conversations maybe when your parents are in their early 70s instead of
Yep.
waiting for the crisis.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay,
Well,
so
next time.
thank you for joining
Thank you,
us,
Gabby.
and thank
Thank you,
you, Sasha,
everybody.
and I will talk to you all soon. Okay.